Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out, and a special thanks to my Patreon and channel members. This video is sponsored by myself. I just opened up a Patreon for those of you that want individual chapters for manhwas, or shorter daily uploads that aren't enough for full-length parts on the channel. Link will be in the description, and pinned comment. Sorry for the interruption. The series starts with a man asking who could ever imagine this happened. After a typical day at work, he was just at home enjoying a game, drinking some beer, and fell asleep only to wake up inside the world of a game. A woman then yells, telling a man named Lord Kadim to watch out as more powerful demons are swarming in. He charges forward saying that he'll make light work of them, and leaps off of a cliff. He raises his axe, and swings straight through one of the monsters, cleaving it in half. He doesn't stop there as the sheer shockwave of his attack starts to disintegrate all the nearby monsters, turning them into literal meat crayons as they scatter their pieces along the ground. He stands there, in the crater of his destruction, slowly stands up saying, as expected of the demon realm, encountering a high-ranking demon right from the start is tough. That means the path to the archdemon is going to be harder than he thought, but that aside, he's definitely going to get an earful from Melissa. As 4 fireballs fly in, creating a massive wall of flame upon their detonation, she yells at Kadim saying that she told him not to charge out there on his own like that. This is the mage Melissa. A man grabs onto his blade, and draws it, saying now is not the time as he dashes forward in between 2 monsters. This is the hero Gale. He says that she can scold him after the battle as their priority are the monsters. Melissa says that Gale is too much of a hero, it's honestly annoying. The woman from earlier starts to pray, giving them buffs, saying that she's worried that Kadim is overexerting himself for their sake, and he needs to focus more on taking care of himself. As a monster leaps at her, it gets its brain smashed in, and a man tells her not to worry so much, and we learn her name is Cyril. She's the priestess, and the man talking to her is Gordon the priest. Gordon says that Kadim definitely has a plan of his own, and Cyril says she's probably just overthinking it. That they'll finish taking care of the monsters here, and go talk to Kadim. She says that sounds like a plan, and Kadim looks up upon the cliff watching Gale obliterate everything in his path. He explains that he is the vanguard of the heroes' party destined to defeat the archdemon. So his goal is to clear a path for them. He is the great warrior of Athala, the god of struggle and wilderness, but also that's not all, as he is a possessor forced inside of this game. He explains that he's a support character in the game, the Mad Warrior. This gives real Samurai Jack vibes. The main story of the game was simple. A hero receives a revelation to slay the archdemon, gathers companions, and defeats him. Something everybody's heard a million times. Some might enjoy the idea of an adventure with these characters, but for a modern person who's never even killed a chicken before, this world was way too brutal. As he chugs a potion, we see him starting to swell up with energy as his unique trait Blood Berserker allows him to consume demons' blood, and get a special buff for a short duration. He starts to go into a trance slaying the monsters. He abandons his weapon at some point, and starts using his bare hands to rip them apart. He rips off the head of one of the demons, and starts consuming it, saying that he can finally say goodbye to this damn world, and wants to leave it as soon as he possibly can. He goes into a full-on slaughter, ripping apart everything in his path, saying that he needs to go faster, and faster, until he's standing atop a mountain of corpses laughing evilly. A female demon starts to approach him, then he grabs her by the throat, saying that he's going to devour every last one of them, and drink all of their blood, and use it as fuel for his path. A holy light starts to beam in on him as Cyril's words echo, telling him to snap out of it. When he comes to, what he sees is that the demon he's holding on to is actually none other than Melissa, whose neck he was crushing. As he is forcibly restrained, he drops her in disbelief, wondering if this really just happened. He falls to his knees, saying there's no way. Of course, due to his unique trait, he's going to gradually lose his sanity due to the demonic energy, and he can't believe it's reached the point that he can't even recognize his own comrades. This phrase, which used to be nothing more than a simple game description of the demon, has now become a madness that drills into his mind, swallowing him whole. The demon blood he once found revolting now tastes sweet. The surging murderous intent, and the thirst for blood are eating away at his mind. It's becoming harder, and harder for him to suppress that madness, and he doesn't know if he'll be able to stay sane until they finish their goal of defeating the archdemon. If he can't suppress the madness, and he does go insane, he wants to know what will happen to him. He says that he needs to kill the archdemon. He has to, and every demon needs to die. While these words echo through his head, Melissa jumps onto his back, saying that she's fine, and he shouldn't blame himself. It was just a little pain, but he's protected them all this time, so now they'll be the ones to protect him. He apologizes to her, and Cyril calls out to him saying that she and Gordon will do their best to ensure he doesn't lose himself to the madness, and to fight as much as he can, and hold on to himself until the very end. Gordon says in the worst case he'll just beat the sins back into him so he doesn't need to worry too much. Gale asks if they're done resting now because if they've had enough it's time to move out. They have to defeat the archdemon together, and save the world. Seeing Gale shine like a ray of hope, Kadim feels relieved, and grabs onto his hand, and they started pushing through until finally at long last it was time for the archdemon to be slayed. Gale yells for Kadim to do it as he leaps in from the side, cleaving off the head of the archdemon, sending it flying through the air. Gale says finally as the archdemon's body is still standing, it slowly falls over, toppling onto the ground, sending out a massive shockwave. Melissa stands there asking if it's finally all over. Gordon says by the grace of God it appears so, and she starts to get excited that it's finally the end. Then suddenly there's a massive light. They all turn wondering what's going on. Cyril yells asking where Kadim is at, as we see her eyes are bandaged. Kadim drops his axe, and runs straight towards the light. Gale yells telling him to quit as he doesn't know what's in there. Kadim stands right before the light. He turns back one last time, and says that it was an honor to be with them all in person rather than through a screen. He says he's going to miss his dear comrades. As he walks in, Gale stretches his hand out telling him to stop, and wait until the white light turns into a golden one. It bursts violently until it closes like it was never there to begin with. Cyril watches this as well, and she drops to her knees in disbelief just saying his name. We see Kadim walking an endless path through a void, only leaving golden footprints behind. He says nothing has changed. It's the same pitch black void as when he first crossed over. He wonders what he should do first when he gets back. He says that honestly he should celebrate with a beer, and then crash on his bed, and knock the fuck out. He's never playing a medieval fantasy game ever again. It still bugs him that he didn't get to say a proper goodbye to his comrades, and he needs to accept reality now. These are the people he'll never be able to see again, and it's time to say a final goodbye to the great warrior of Athala, Kadim. As he stands before the only light in this void, he says this must be the exit to reality. Once he exits this he'll be free, but his eyes open widely, and he starts to laugh nervously saying this has to be a dream. As what he sees is a plus sign, and he starts to laugh maniacally, losing all sense of reasoning. As the light grows more and more, his laughter starts to sound painful, as we see he is at New Game Plus, and it's time for him to run that shit back. We see him now walking with a group of prisoners being escorted. They all have their hands restricted, forced to follow the caravan leader. A man says that he's innocent. It was the baker's son who killed her. The other dude says that he only stole one bronze ring. He didn't even know that a silver necklace was in there. One of the guards tells the prisoners all to shut the fuck up. They're too scared to even look at him. He says that the trash sure is noisy today until one of the men tell him that he's truly innocent. The guard asks who he is. He says that he never sold any demonic byproducts, and someone planted them to frame him. He needs to meet the person who searched his bag. The guard stares at him saying that there's always something like that, framing an innocent person just to pad their own record. To think such a young kid is already doing this. In the end a paladin is a paladin no matter how young he is. However, if he messes up his head will be the one on the chopping block. The guard asks if he's really daring to doubt a paladin of Olga. He says of course not. The guard says that if he is truly innocent, he'll be released safely, and to return to his spot as he walks back. The guard says that it's a shame. Since a paladin personally made a move, he's not going to survive. Next time he should try to be born with a better status. Putting that peddler aside, as he stands in front of Kadim, they ask how they managed to catch that barbarian since he's massive. We see him toppling over literally everyone. Kadim stands there thinking about it, asking what happened. His body feels familiar, but the power he's built up before is now gone. It seems that the madness and guilt that ate away at his mind have vanished as well. According to the New Game Plus text, he must have restarted the game, but he still doesn't understand. Even in reality, the game never had this start. An old man then calls out to Kadim, and hands him an herb saying that if he chews on this, it'll make the trip less boring. Kadim stares down at it, and the man says he was helped by barbarians back in the day, and seeing him reminds him of those times. It's not much of a way to repay them, but it's all he has. Kadim takes the herb, and the old man asks how he got caught. He says he doesn't know. The old man says he understands, and the paladins and priests of the empire are far too hostile towards heretics. Believing in a different god isn't a crime in the first place. Kadim is confused, asking if there's an empire on this continent. The old man asks if he really doesn't know of the Laconia Empire. Kadim says that he thought that was just a kingdom at the center of the continent. The old man says he heard they used to call it that a long time ago. Kadim wonders if he fell into some kind of parallel world with a slightly different setting, asking where they're even heading. The old man says they're likely heading to the capital of the holy city of Lucan. Once they arrive there, all the other prisoners will be summoned by the inquisitors of Ilga, and he'll probably be subjected to a heresy trial. He says it's just a relief they won't kill him immediately. The old man asks what he means by relieved, as the inquisitors are all psychos, obsessed with torture, and when they see a heretic like himself, they'll treat him like a fun toy. They'll hammer spikes into his gums, and pour iron down his nose. While he's saying all these things, an attack flies in, piercing the old man straight through the chest onto the ground, killing him instantly. The paladin tells everybody to listen up. Those who insult the agents of Ilga shall wash away their sins with death. He then turns towards Kadim, asking if he's the one who caused this mess. If he doesn't want to end up like that guy, then bow his head, and beg for forgiveness, because if he does, he'll let him live. Kadim starts to smile, and laugh, pissing the paladin off. He tells him this is blasphemy as he comes in with an attack. Kadim stares at it, and grins, but the paladin is surprised by the fact that he caught it with his bare hands. The paladin tries to pull it out, and yells, realizing he can't, saying to let go. Kadim says if that's what he wants, then sure. He then starts to crouch down, which makes the horse act up. The paladin says he's going to judge him right now, but realizes he made a mistake as Kadim flies in with a shoulder charge. We hear a shockwave that sounds like it breaks the sound barrier, and even parts the clouds. On the other side of the road is the paladin and his horse, as they both lay there after getting slammed by the attack. Kadim stares, wondering if he killed him because he's still breathing. As the paladin stands up, he asks how dare a filthy heretic inflict harm upon an agent of God. Kadim says that in the end, a paladin is still a paladin, and that he knew it wouldn't have killed him. The paladin then raises his spear into the air. Kadim notices what it is, and for some reason it pisses him off. The paladin starts to call for Ilga, master of eternal radiance, to strike down this wicked servant of the devil. In the name of Ilga, he's going to sentence him. He starts to scream before charging in with his spear that has a golden light following it. Kadim looks down at it, saying that this is not something he'll be able to dodge. All we hear is the sound of the attack, as it sends him flying backwards into the carriage, shattering the restraints on his wrist. We see that it has some real power behind it. Kadim reaches up towards his wound, and the paladin says that for him to still be alive after that attack, it seems that he's as thick-skinned as he is ugly. Kadim says even if his stats were reset, and only his unique trait of blood berserker remains, for him to struggle against a guy like this, he wouldn't be having this much trouble if there were even a lower tier demon around. He wonders how to get out of this situation before he starts to smell something, asking if the scent is what he thinks it is. The paladin approaches him, saying that he acknowledges his strength, but this is the end. And he can obtain forgiveness from Ilga through his death. The paladin then smells it too, saying this shit reeks, asking what it is. Kadim starts to laugh before standing back up, and the paladin asks what the hell he finds so funny. Kadim says that the god, Ilga whom they all worship has chosen him, and not some novice paladin, as he uses his bare hands to dig into the box on the wagon, and he pulls out a nasty-ass head. The paladin looks horrified. We understand that he's about to consume his blood as he raises the head up, and starts laughing. Wood. Kadim starts to squeeze its head like a watermelon, and begins drinking the blood from it, causing him to low-key start showering in its blood. Everybody watches horrified, and the paladin asks if he lost his mind after taking that attack, but complains about how much that shit reeks. He points his spear at one of the normal soldiers, saying that he needs to go finish off the disgusting wretch. The soldier slowly inches forward, and is super scared, but decides to go for it, and charges straight at Kadim. Kadim grabs him by the head, and then wipes his mouth from the blood, and lifts the dude into the air. The dude begs to be saved, but we see him squeezing the dude's head. The paladin looks horrified. And we learn it's because he popped it like a zit. As the dude's head just got turned into mist, Kadim says that it must have been a lower tier demon. It has no other special effects besides granting him strength reinforcement. Still, with as much power, it should be enough to escape this situation. Rather, it's way more than enough. As he sits there, and starts to scream into the air, the soldiers look horrified until they lose their will to fight. Dropping their weapons in unison, they all start to run away. The paladin says that they shouldn't retreat. They just need to form ranks, and subdue the prisoner since he is unarmed, and wounded. Anyone who flees will be dealt with severely under military law. And Kadim says if they stabbed him a couple more times he would be dead for sure. As he throws the head like a baseball towards the paladin dodges, but it causes him to fall onto the floor. When he lands he looks over at the head wondering what he's thinking, and when he looks back forward he starts to feel the ground shake, and is surprised because Kadim is running straight at him. He stands back up, and once more starts to do his little chant for "O God, to grant him power." And we see his eyes going golden as he runs straight towards him as well. He readies his spear. Saying that's all for Ilga, he thrusts forward telling him it's a shame, but this is the end. And he can beg Ilga for forgiveness for his sins in the afterlife. Kadim asks him if that's really all he's got. Because it's kind of pathetic. The paladin looks scared as Kadim caught it under his arm. He holds it there so he can't escape, and rears back his fist before punching the paladin in the face, denting the side of his skull, and sends him flying. But it doesn't stop there, as he walks over mounting him, and starts beating the shit out of him until the paladin begs for him to stop in a broken voice. His face is all swollen. And he says that he was wrong begging for forgiveness. Kadim gets off of him as the guy says please, and he thanks him as he walks away. But in reality he tells him to just wait because he's going to have his revenge. He looks like one of those bad Botox surgeries. Awful makeover. A couple minutes go by, and he's still sitting there trying to catch his breath saying that he'll surely have his revenge until he hears a strange sound. And it's none other than his spear dragging along the dirt as Kadim is walking back. He stands over him, which surprises him. As the paladin begins to cry he realizes that he is cooked. And Kadim says that if he's still praying to his god in this situation he'll send him to the afterlife so he can be with him. The paladin tries to tell him to wait. But of course Kadim doesn't care, and stabs him straight through the chest, killing him. He then looks around spotting some soldiers who were still watching from far back. And once he meets their gaze they begin running away. He says that this is a lesson he learned from the first playthrough. As he picks up a spear the soldiers who were running turn back wondering if they're safe since they made it pretty far. Of course that's not the case as every single one of them start getting impaled by spears that Kadim is throwing saying that he will no longer leave any loose ends. In some bushes nearby the wagon some soldiers are shaking in fear trying to hide their presence. Kadim turns, and spots one of them throwing the spear into the bushes killing him. Actually he collated them, my bad bro is like that. The prisoners walk over, as one of them start calling out to him saying that was impressive that he slaughtered the paladin. And that he has something to tell him asking for the handcuffs to be taken off, but Kadim backhands the dude's head deleting it. The rest of the villagers are then painted in the dude's blood and thoughts. And he says that he already learned before that he can't possibly leave any loose ends as it would only come back to bite him in the ass. Everybody looks afraid as he starts chasing after them. To finish the job, a little later we see one of the villagers raising his hands, asking why he's even doing this, since they didn't do anything wrong. He begs for him to stop before Kadim thrusts down, killing him. He looks behind, showing all of the villagers' bodies that he's ripped apart, saying that if he leaves them alive, they'll go around blabbing about what they saw. In the worst case scenario, a high unit of paladins would be sent as a pursuit party, and he can't afford to take that kind of risk. We see the dude who was claiming to be innocent crying in a bush nearby. He sits there shaking in fear, and Kadim approaches him, saying that this one is the last. He raises his spear, and the dude says that this shit is unfair. Kadim hesitates, and the guy starts bowing to him, saying that he really didn't do anything wrong, begging to live. Kadim asks for one reason why he should spare him. He says that he has a wife and child back in his hometown who were waiting for him, and he was only captured because he was framed. Kadim says that he really does seem innocent, but that's not a good enough reason to let him live. The man yells in a desperate plea, saying that he'll guide him, and he must need a guide to get around. Kadim asks what he means, and the dude says that he's a traveling merchant from Moltana, the Free City Alliance. He sold goods all over the place, so no one knows the geography better than he does. Kadim says he has a few things to ask him then. He heard earlier that Laconia became an empire, but in his memory, it was only a kingdom. He asks if the empire has been here since its founding, or when exactly it became one. The man is confused, wondering if maybe he came from the wilderness beyond the mountains. Unlike the barbarians who settled on the continent, those from beyond the mountains might have lost contact hundreds of years ago. Kadim asks why he's being silent, and if maybe he doesn't know. He says he does. He tells him that the year is 248 of the imperial calendar, and 248 years have passed since the founding emperor established the empire. Before that, it was definitely a kingdom. Kadim asks what the imperial calendar is, and what year it would be according to the solar lunar. The dude says that he doesn't know the exact number since it's a really old calendar they don't use, but it would be around 1130. Kadim is surprised that the commonly used calendar has now become ancient. He then asks what the current state of the continent is, and why the Church of Ilga has turned out like this. Also, he wants to know about the demon realm. The dude says he mentioned about 300 years ago that they unified the continent, but now it's practically divided into 3 factions. The Church of Ilga grew in power following the Great Outbreak, and ended up like that. As for the demon realm, no one who goes there comes back alive, so there's no way to know what's happening on the inside. Kadim finds this surprising, and starts asking about Gail, Melissa, Gordon, and Cyril, and if he's heard of these names. He says that he's never heard of them, but maybe Melissa is a name he's heard somewhere else. He says maybe it was Elisa, or Melissa, he's not actually too sure. Kadim says for the heroes who conquered the demon realm and slayed the archdemon to be forgotten, it makes no sense. He doesn't know if this is really the same world that follows his first playthrough. He then looks up at the man asking why on earth the demons are swarming the continent. He says no one knows that either. Some say it's a divine punishment from Ilga, who is enraged by the corrupt world. Others say a mad archmage opened a gate to another world, and some say it's a sign that a terrifying great evil will soon descend upon the world, but the truth likely only exists behind the eyelids of the Almighty God who is above the clouds. Kadim looks up at the sky, and grabs his spear, and starts to walk away. He takes a look at the landscape. He says if he judges by the merchant words, this place is 300 years after his first playthrough. Not only was he kicked out of the world he originally lived in, but now he's in exile, even in the world he barely managed to settle in, though it wasn't much. The knowledge in his head has become hundreds of years out of date, and the comrades he just partied with are already a handful of dust in this era. He doesn't even know if there's a reason to continue living like this, repeating his endless slaughter, and suppressing his madness by drinking the blood of demons. There's not even a guarantee that he can return to reality when he reaches the ending again. And he's sure that the god would just make him do another new game ++. And there might even be another one after that. He closes his eyes, and breaks the spear out of frustration. The merchant wonders what he's doing as he puts the spear to his throat, readying himself. The merchant asks what the hell he's trying to do, but Kadim says if he starts this journey again, he'll only be left with regrets. And even if he meets his end, there will never be a more appropriate time than now. He only hopes that what awaits after death isn't a room with no exit labeled game over. He closes his eyes, and starts to slowly push the spear into his throat, but recalls him asking Melissa what she would do after they defeat the archdemon. She says that she might teach other mages, or build a tower, or something. He then realizes it, asking if he's really heard the name Melissa. He says maybe somewhere in passing, but he's not too sure, but he believes that's the name of the first tower master, or maybe something like that at least. Kadim asks where it is, and he says that it's in a city called Vestana at the eastern edge of the Free City Alliance. And since they are in the central part of the continent under Imperial territory, even if they leave now, it'll take 2 months at the fastest. He points in the direction. Kadim thinks about it, and smiles, saying that it's all because of Melissa, and he can't die even if he wants to. He tells him to guide him to the magic tower, and take the fastest route. The merchant says that he still has a family back home, and he can't afford to waste a long time acting as a guide. Kadim says that in that case, he'll give him the most precious thing he can offer. The merchant asks what it is, and Kadim says that of course he's talking about his life. He drops the spear into the floor, saying that he should find the key, unlock his shackles, and pack whatever he can, as they are going to leave immediately. He walks over to the broken wagon, and picks up a blade, saying at least this will be useful. It's not quite a consecrated weapon, but it's a very useful weapon. He'd love to take that paladin spear, but a consecrated weapon blessed by a priest of Ilga causes a rejection reaction to anyone other than the paladin. If only he could have brought the axe he used in his last playthrough. The merchant says that this shit's a little rough, but at least he kept his life. He then watches as Kadim drains the rest of the monster's head into a water skin. But now they're both ready, and Kadim says it's time for them to head out towards the magic tower. Why is he making this poor guy carry the backpack when he's like 4 of him combined? Some time later, birds begin to swarm the bodies. Until someone else appears. They walk over to the paladin's corpse, saying that they were wondering why he hasn't arrived for days, and that they didn't expect to find him laying here. We learn that the paladin's name is actually Linton Philippus. A knight says that it seems everyone, soldiers and prisoners alike, have been annihilated, asking what to do now. And the paladin looking down is none other than a woman named Helia. She says that he should find anything that could be a clue, and the knight's name is Ethan. She says they can't exactly go back to the archbishop, and report that Linton is dead with nothing else to show for. Ethan says he understands, and she says that it's pathetic. Wondering who on earth would dare kill a paladin. And of all people, it had to be someone related to the archbishop, and she doesn't care what kind of trash they are. They will definitely pay the price. After some time, we see Kadim laying down as they're camping for the night. While the fire is dying down, the other dude is gone. He's making a break for it, running through the woods saying that he's finally out, and he needs to get as far away as possible. He already felt that leaving the Empire on his own would be dangerous, so he thought having a traveling companion would be a good thing, but the problem is that this is a barbarian who eats demon corpses, and slaughtered dozens of men single-handedly. We finally learn the dude's name is Duncan. After observing Kadim for the past few days, he found it very hard to interact with him. Anytime he tried to offer him something, or make a suggestion, or even ask a question, he would always be met with silence. Kadim would almost never speak, and he would forbid any question other than those that were necessary. No matter how much he watches him, he can't read his thoughts at all, and he acts more like a wild beast than he does a human, and it feels like he's performing a circus act with his head inside a lion's mouth every single day. If that were the only problem, he would have endured it, but there's a bigger issue, and it's that the barbarian's speed is way too much for him to keep up with. He might not look like much, but he's a peddler who's second to none to being quick and tireless on his feet. Whenever he tells him which way to go, he's already far ahead before he realizes it, and when he finally catches up, he just tosses a cold remark his way, and takes off again, and then he glares at him until he finally catches up, as if he's threatening to crack his skull if he's late. He says that if he wasn't there would already be a gap of dozens of kilometers between them, and that his legs must be made of steel or something. He's already on the verge of a nervous breakdown, especially if he keeps matching that pace. He feels like he's going to die soon, so he needs to escape, and that's why he's making a break for it right now. The opportunity came sooner than he thought, and now that he's escaped into the forest, under the guise of darkness, he won't be able to tell which direction he went. The bag he had was practically his entire fortune. There were oil, never mind not reading this whole list, but it was items that he was going to sell at the city, but if he actually tried to take it with him he probably would have woken the beast up. It's a waste, but it can't be more precious than his life. He wonders how long he's been running, because every direction looks the same no matter where he goes. He then says that with this he's finally free though, but Kadim asks him where he's headed in such a hurry. He starts to freak out, and turns horrified asking how. Kadim asks if he's running away, and if so why, and if maybe he no longer needs the payment he promised. Duncan says no, and boasts saying that he committed a mortal sin. He should have never forgotten the grace Kadim showed him by sparing his life, and he begs for it once more. Kadim says that what he wants is not an apology, but the reason, and if that reason isn't fixed he's just going to run away again. He wants him to explain why he ran away. He says the thing is he's just too fast for him to keep up with. He felt like if he kept trying to match that speed he'd eventually collapse, and die, and he accepts himself saying that this is probably the end for him. Kadim stares at him before telling him that it's time to head back, and from now on he'll walk slower. As they make their way back towards the camp, Duncan stands there dumbfounded. Kadim rekindles the fire as Duncan lays down. In the middle of his sleep he starts having a nightmare about Kadim. Kadim stares at him saying that his pace is a habit born from his first playthrough. Every moment felt urgent as if he was constantly being hunted. Everywhere he looked was filled with a hellscape that was barren and hostile. Food and water were scarce, and rest and leisure were foreign concepts. Because he moved forward by drinking demon blood he never knew when the madness would swallow him whole, and he and his comrades used to rush their steps, even cutting into their time for eating and sleeping. He sighs saying that it's okay to relax now, because unlike that hellscape the current surroundings aren't that dangerous, food and water are sufficient, and while the madness might resurface one day, at least it's not today. Besides, he's found a new reason to slow down, and that's the fact that the peddler is a pretty good guide. Duncan explains that there's been a lot of friction at the border recently, and even if it means taking a detour, they should head towards a side where the guards are thinner. Kadim says that if he says so, he's fine with doing that. Duncan smiles. Kadim explains that he has a map of the continent in his head, but it's from over 300 years ago, and without a capable guide he wouldn't be able to find his own way. Duncan says that most paladins capture heretics on sight because they're obsessed with their records. Some though hunt nearby demons because they are passion-driven freaks, and a barbarian like himself won't be able to sleep soundly until they reach the territory of the Free City Alliance. Kadim says he was wondering why it was so hard to run into demons despite them supposedly swarming the continent, and it must be because of the paladins. He looks down at the blood in his water skin, saying that it's going to go bad soon, and he needs to secure some fresh blood. Later that night in the forest, Duncan is a little surprised that there's a village, and says it must be a slash and burn farmer's village. It would be best to ask for food, and a place to stay there for tonight. Kadim says that it's strange because there's not a single light on, and it's dinner time already. The wooden gate is open, and there are no guards either. Duncan wonders if it is an abandoned village, but Kadim says they won't know until they check it out themselves. Duncan asks if he's crazy as a monster or demon might have already appeared, and driven everyone away, and could still be lingering. They start to hear some sounds, and Duncan gets scared, but Kadim says that if it's a demon, as he draws his blade from the scabbard, that's actually some pretty good news. As they start to investigate the village, Duncan asks if it's just empty, wondering what's going on. As it doesn't look exactly like an abandoned village either. Kadim comes to a stop, staring at a doorway, as he can tell something's inside. Duncan asks why he's stopping, and says come to think of it, this is the only house with a door open. A monster then starts to run out, and stab straight towards Kadim. Much to its surprise, Bro gets cleaved diagonally in half. Before it can even realize what happened, it falls to the floor, and Duncan screams. Even more starts to step out of the building, carrying a variety of weapons. The barber fucked they shit up, on God twin. Kadim says goblins in this world aren't usually aggressive. They're typically timid creatures that go out of their way to avoid humans. The fact that they've turned hostile means that a certain presence has intervened, and he's definitely come to the right place. The fucked up haircut number 1 leaps at him, and of course he kills him out of pity for that awful cut. The other two look surprised, and Kadim doesn't hesitate. As he raises his arm, the other comes in and he cuts its head clean off. While his friend is getting murdered, the other one throws its weapon, trying to take advantage of it. Kadim blocks it, leaving it surprised, and he readies his blade, thrusting it forward, taking advantage of the fact it is slow. The goblin looks down at his heart, realizing that he's been killed, as Kadim slices downwards, bringing all of his entrails to the floor. Duncan screams, hoping that's all of them, and asks Kadim if it's over. He says he doesn't know either, but then they hear another goblin sound. One of them slowly comes out, carrying a little girl. Duncan looks surprised, and the goblin starts screaming. The barber literally made him bald. Kadim throws his sword forward, and it pierces straight through its skull. It mutters a couple sounds before it stumbles backwards onto the floor. Kadim approaches the girl, and Duncan asks what would have happened if he hit the kid. Kadim says that never was a possibility, and grabs the little girl, picking her up, and rips the rope off with his bare hands, saying that he has some questions. She starts to scream, but Duncan saves the day by bringing out some toys, telling her that they're not bad people. He hands her a piece of candy, saying this should cheer her up a little bit, and he tells her the monsters are gone, so not to worry. Kadim says that he's surprisingly good with kids, and Duncan reminds him that he has a son back home, and he's about her age. The girl starts calling out for her mommy, and Duncan says don't worry, as they'll help her find her mom. She says that her mother and father abandoned her. Kadim looks surprised, and Duncan asks if that means that the people who tied her up were them. Kadim starts to realize what's going on. A woman then runs out calling out for her daughter, and she hugs her, asking if she's okay. She starts crying, and the villagers are surprised to see all the goblins murdered. They ask Kadim if he did this, and he picks up the goblin that has his sword still in its head, and pulls it out, saying that he didn't do it, but his weapon did. It's a cliché story, but he wants to hear it anyways, asking why the hell they offered a child, as a sacrifice to a demon no less. They all look too guilty to speak, but eventually come to explain that the forest was originally crawling with goblins. The soil in their old lands had weathered, so they burned it, and moved their settlement here. When they saw the flames, most of the goblins fled, but then something strange happened a while ago. The goblins remaining in the forest began to raid them. They gathered the men to set out to exterminate them, but there they saw it. There was a demon guiding them, and they didn't have the strength to face both of them. Unable to withstand their onslaught, they surrendered to the demon in despair. The demon didn't kill them though, and instead said that he would come visit the village. Duncan realizes they've given children already, asks if they think it's okay for them to call themselves parents. The villager asks what the hell they were meant to do. wondering if they were meant to give away their eldest kids, who were approaching adulthood. Duncan asks if he's stupid, saying that he mentioned that they were farmers, they could have just found a different land. The dude asks if he thinks finding a settlement is this easy. Kadim slams the table, breaking it, causing them both to stop yelling. He asks how many horns the demon had on his head. The man asks what he means by horns, as there was nothing like that. Kadim says that if it doesn't have horns, it's low tier, and since it has no distinguishing features compared to other demons, maybe it's a primal species, but it shouldn't be too hard to handle. He says very well, and reaches for a sword, telling them to lead the way. The villagers ask where to, and he asks if they're stupid, because he needs to go to the demon's lair. They light up a torch, and start guiding him there, and Duncan looks around a bit on edge. One of the villagers say he's sorry, but they don't have anything to offer him as payment, as the whole village is barely scraping by. Kadim says he's doing this because he has his own reasons, and there's no need to give him a reward. The man says if that's the case then he's truly grateful, but Kadim says he'll take this instead, as he only has one weapon at the moment. The dude tells him to go for it, but now that they have arrived, the demon is just ahead in this cave. They got Steve up in this bitch. Kadim stares at the cave entrance, and the villagers say that now they'll head back, because goblins might suddenly attack the village when they're gone. Duncan yells, asking if they're saying all these people came along just to act as guides. Kadim tells Duncan not to worry, as having cowards on the battlefield is nothing but a distraction, and they're going together. Duncan asks if it's really just the two of them, but Kadim says he needs a torchbearer to light the way while he fights the demon. Duncan says this is not what he expected, but goes in anyways, growing more nervous. He asks why he's not criticizing or scolding the villagers. Not only did they sacrifice their own children to a demon, but they're such cowards they won't even go in to rescue them. Kadim asks if he's ever faced a living demon. He says that he hasn't, but he's seen a few demon corpses in the black market a couple times. Kadim says that a human who faces a demon directly is never the same again. Every noble will to live is crushed, leaving only fear, and desperate craving for survival. A few individuals can overcome and stand against that, but that kind of self-control isn't from everyone. Duncan asks how they could still sacrifice their own children, as even beasts know the value of their young. Kadim says sometimes one must wade through the mire, and swallow filth just to stay alive. It was a choice they made for their own survival, and he cannot simply condemn them, and based on their excuse they had no choice. Duncan says that still, from the child's perspective, it's as if the whole world has abandoned them. What meaning is there in a life sustained by abandoning one's own humanity? Kadim comes to a stop as Duncan turns back asking what's wrong. Kadim says in a sense, this peddler is a character in a game closer to a real-world moral compass than he is. He has crossed countless blood-soaked battlefields, and had his values completely twisted just to return to reality. Even if he were to return like this, he doesn't know if he'd live a proper life. Duncan wonders if maybe he said something wrong, asking if he thinks the kidnapped children are still alive. Kadim resolves himself, saying that if the demon were less cunning, and less cruel, it would have killed the children already, but if it's a cunning and cruel one, it surely would have kept them alive. Duncan says that sounds odd, asking if he means the opposite. Kadim then raises his axe, and Duncan starts to call out to him over and over as Kadim swings down. Duncan closes his eyes out of fear, but the axe gets thrown through the air down into the cave. As it comes into contact with something, Duncan is surprised that he wasn't cut down. As the goblin slowly stumbles out of the cave, it drops its club as the axe has pierced its skull. As if a dam had broken, the goblins begin to flood out of the cave, dropping their clubs before falling backwards. Duncan asks why there are so many of them, and Kadim tells him to keep the light steady. He charges straight in, thrusting for the first goblin to come out, piercing straight through its head. He grabs onto the goblin's arm, swings it behind him, and cleaves the one in front of him down, but his sword hits a stalagmite. He says that it will be hard to swing a sword freely in here. The goblins realize that he doesn't have that much room to work with, and start to run, charging at him. Using his belt, he ties it around the blade so he can use it more like a club. He swings, and it pierces straight through the side of a goblin's skull. He doesn't stop there as he continues his march forward, switching back to the blade end for the second, and clubbing the third. He looks around, spotting the first one that he killed with the axe, and walks over grabbing it. As he pulls it out of its skull, he starts using both the sword and the axe, creating a human meat grinder. Every goblin that steps up gets cleaved into chunks. He slowly begins painting himself in their blood until one falls in front of Duncan. Duncan looks down, terrified, asking what kind of monster Kadim really is. The goblins even start to run away from him, and Duncan tells him. Kadim says that they're going after them. Since they've lost most of their pack, they'll run back to the demon. As they continue down the cave, Duncan keeps looking around nervously. He says he thought the path was getting narrower, but it opened up into a wide space again. The walls look like they were carved out to widen the area, and Duncan asks if this is the base. Kadim smells the air, saying that there's definitely a demon nearby, and he should stay back, but not run away. The goblins might track him in a pack, and kill him, and if one or two approach, he should fend them off with a torch. He turns toward the sound of footsteps getting closer, leaps backwards, and raises his guard, though his arm gets sliced. The demon has made its appearance. The demon says that he hasn't seen him before, and he's not a villager, and begins laughing, saying this is interesting. Kadim says that it's different from what he heard, since it has a horn. While it's small, it's still growing. He tightens his grip on the axe, saying that this is going to be a little hard. The demon says that he likes the look on his face before vanishing. Kadim looks a bit taken aback, and blocks the attack. The demon says that he likes humans as they are weak, and follow orders easily. Kadim says that he lost track of its movement for a second, and he only blocked it out of pure instinct. It's just as he thought, this isn't the strength or agility of a low-ranked demon. The demon says that he's killed too many of his goblins, and he's starting to dislike humans, and the only course of action left for him is to beg for forgiveness. Kadim says that a low-ranked demon can be defeated by a dozen untrained men, but with a mid-ranked demon even an entire unit of elite soldiers can't guarantee you win. The demon tells him he'll give him just one chance, and points at his arm saying that if he uses that axe to chop off his own arm, then chew up all the meat and bone, he'll let him live. Kadim says in his current state it's hard to take on a proper mid-ranked demon, but since its horns haven't fully grown yet, it might be doable. The demon asks what he's doing, and if he's not going to cut it off, wondering why he's not listening to him. Kadim tells it that it's been yapping for a while now, and he doesn't like taking orders from a walking blood bag like itself. He slices the water skin, and the demon is surprised as he smells it, wondering why a human would have that. Kadim begins drinking it, and throws it onto the floor. As he starts to swell up with a demonic energy, he begins screaming so loudly that the demon looks scared. Kadim's eyes go red, and he says that the blood is old, but thankfully it still works, but the duration won't be long so he has to end this quickly. The demon wonders why it feels fear towards a mere human, because it should not be possible. The demon decides to attack him saying that he's going to finish this now, and leaps at him. Kadim says that they're bastards who made a deal with the demon. He says usually people who make deals with demons flee the moment they sense danger, and that its judgment has been clouded because of its newly budding horn, and a mix of fear. Its attack comes in, and Kadim says that he can actually track it now. As he swings his axe forward, he deflects the demon's claws. While the demon's claws have been chipped, so has the axe. He says at this rate the blade breaking is only a matter of time too. Not that it would matter if the axe breaks, because he could use the sword. If there's no sword, he'll use his bare hands. The demon looks down at his chipped claws, and screams saying that he won't forgive him. Kadim runs forward, and leaps at him with both weapons raised. He comes in first with the sword, which the demon blocks, but it starts to press him down into the earth itself. The demon asks what the hell kind of strength this is. Kadim readies his axe, and the demon realizes he needs to distance himself, so he breaks free from their power struggle, and leaps backwards to create distance. The demon says that the destructive power is insane, asking how a mere human can have this. It screeches before thrusting towards his head, which he sidesteps, and hits him with a shoulder charge straight to the chest. It sends him sliding backwards along the ground, and Kadim comes forward with his sword slicing at its throat. The demon narrowly dodges. Kadim carries the momentum forward, pivoting off his foot. Saying that he needs to drive it back, and the demon says that it needs distance, it backsteps, causing Kadim to shatter the nearby rocks. The demon falls onto the floor screaming, asking what he is, saying that he's definitely not a human. Kadim continues to glare at him with his eyes now purely red from the demonic energy. The demon says there's no way, and he must be a monster wearing human skin. The demon jumps off the floor, and clings to a stalactite. He says he's being overpowered, and all of his attacks are being blocked, so charging head on is useless. The demon hears Duncan screaming. Duncan yells saying that they need to stay back unless they want another taste of fire, telling them it's hot. The demon realizes that it's because of the fire, and if he can get rid of that, he'll have a chance. As he starts treating the stalactites like a jungle gym, he's moving toward Duncan, and Kadim realizes it too. He flips the axe into his hand, and catches it, saying that it's obvious what it's after, and he won't let him have his way. Kadim says that he's quick on his feet, and even if it tries to aim for him it's just going to dodge it. In that case he knows what he needs to do as he tightens the grip on the axe. He says he'll just crush the ceiling that it's hanging on, and throws the axe forward. It flies and it shatters the ceiling, and the goblins turn surprised. So does Duncan. As the demon starts to fall down it crashes into the ground. Kadim grabs his blade, and walks over. The demon is freaking out about the dust in his eyes. Kadim closes the gap, and raises his blade before thrusting it through its skull. The demon grabs onto it saying that it hurts like hell. Kadim says that its face looks much better now. The demon swings towards his head saying that he'll kill him. Kadim says that for it to still be alive after having its head pierced is surprising. He tightens the grip on the sword, and starts to rotate his body, saying that it's becoming a nuisance though. The demon screams saying that it hurts, and begs for him to stop. As he pulls the sword out by cleaving backwards, completely splitting it in two. It drops to the ground. We see it still trying to speak with half of its skull split in half. It dies shortly after as it falls onto the floor. His buff wears out right after, and he sighs out of relief saying that it's really lucky it didn't wear off while he was fighting it, because that was almost rough. The goblins start to ask for their king, and Kadim is surprised. As the goblins begin shaking in fear, Kadim says that now that their ferocity has subsided, and that the demon is dead, they won't be influenced by the demonic energy anymore. As he cuts off one of their heads, he says regardless there are already creatures that have become monsters, and he'll wipe them all out before he leaves. The other goblin looks at his homie's head on the floor, and starts to make a run for it. Of course he doesn't get far before he gets his shit split too. Kadim says that with these two there's only one more left. As he sees one holding a torch, it's startled to see him, and he walks over saying that he needs to finish this now. He goes to swing until he hears Duncan yelling out for him. He stops just shy Duncan's head, and is surprised. Duncan is shaking in fear, and slowly opens his eyes, looking at the blade in front of him. Kadim can't believe himself. Duncan asks if he's okay, and Kadim apologizes. He says it was dark, and he couldn't see well, and the children are likely further inside. So they should finish off the remaining goblins, and take the children back. Duncan says he understands. Kadim carries the demon further into the cave. Some time later out in the village, everybody's screaming about the kids being back, and everybody's hugging them, but the kids look like they went through literal hell. They begin thanking Kadim, asking if that thing on his shoulder is really the demon. One of the women says that she made some stew with chicken and barley, and to have a meal at her house. Kadim says instead to focus on feeding the children who returned, because they've been crying and screaming all night, so they must be starving, and scared. He tells Duncan to go eat with them too. Duncan asks what he's going to do. Kadim says he needs to go rest first. Duncan looks around, spotting one of the kids who has a 1,000-yard stare. He feels bad for him. We get a flashback to when he first found them in the cave, and he looked horrified as they were all screaming nonsensical things over and over. Kadim explains that they've all been brainwashed since they were captured. They're made to repeat these phrases endlessly until their minds break. They're forced to have the fact that their parents abandoned them, and that they're useless, instilled into them. This brainwashing process is powerful enough that even a priest couldn't withstand it. In a way you can't even call it brainwashing, because it's a fact their parents abandoned them. They etched the fact into their minds so they could never forget it. Having been abandoned by the parents who were their entire world, and having the fact that they're free in the forest, these children will never be able to escape that state, and grow up normally. Duncan says this is horrible, asking why demons would do it. Kadim tells him that's because it's a demon's nature. Human suffering and despair are great sources of nourishment for them. Duncan looks surprised, and says that this is what he meant when he said that a less cruel demon would have just killed them. Still, if the parents repent for their sins, and they take care of the children with all their heart, they might be able to recover somehow, as there's a saying that sincerity moves even heaven. Kadim says that he won't say it's entirely impossible, but he doesn't think the parents who have already abandoned their children would be capable of that. Back in the present, Duncan realizes that he might be right, and turns, leaving with Kadim. The kid still just blankly stares off into the sky. They get to their lodging. Duncan asks if they're really leaving already, as they should rest at least for today, and leave tomorrow since it looks like his injuries haven't fully healed yet. Kadim says that witnesses have likely come forward by now. Killing soldiers and prisoners is one thing, but killing a paladin isn't something they'll overlook. Duncan says that he low-key forgot that shit happened. Kadim says that if they're unlucky, trackers might already be on their trail, so they need to hurry. It seems like Helia is still searching the area. But back to Kadim, before they leave we see him putting the knife through the demon's throat, and he pulls it out starting to drain it into his water skin. He says that it's about half full, and it should be enough to use for an emergency, and he supposes that he's achieved his primary goal for visiting the village as he throws its used corpse onto the floor. One of the men then asks what he plans to do with the corpse, and he says that he doesn't need it so they should burn it. They're surprised asking if he's really going to burn a demon when he went through the trouble of catching it as they thought he was doing it for money. And maybe he doesn't know how much it's worth, and the guy says he doesn't know why he's doing this but it works for him. Since he'll make a killing. Kadim can tell they are acting weird, saying that if they don't burn it now and just leave it, the scent of blood will spread, and if monsters catch that scent, and feast on a demon's corpse, they'll turn it into demonic beasts. Unless they're looking for another raid of frenzied goblins they should burn it. The guy tries to play it off, and starts dragging the body away saying that they'll burn it immediately. The girl from earlier who offered him stew walks over saying that it's not much, but as a token for saving the children of the village they gathered some items that he might find useful. It's boots, some pouches, and a belt. Kadim says he'll make good use of them, and after he puts all the new drip on he says that it's actually pretty decent, and it's time for them to head out immediately. The mark on his chest begins to ache, and he says that his body's recovery rate is insane, and the wounds he got from the demon are already scabbing over, yet the wound from the paladin hasn't healed after 10 days, and that the consecrated weapon really is just different. But back to the dead paladin, Ethan calls out to Helia saying that they've searched everywhere, but there's not a single clue. She says that they shouldn't just look at the scene, they need to try to deduce the culprit's intentions. Once even the villagers were slaughtered it wasn't for a rescue, and there are no signs of the soldiers' equipment being stolen either. But also why was the demon's corpse butchered like that? Making her wonder what kind of unholy group would do such a thing. Ethan asks if she has someone in mind on who it could be, and she calls him an idiot saying that she's talking about spirits, and he can use that theory as a base to find clues. Then flames him, saying there's a reason he hasn't moved past the paladin rank despite it being so long since his ordination. Ethan gets annoyed saying that she doesn't even know herself, and calls her arrogant, but it's not like he can talk back. She's an arch-paladin, and we learn her last name is Munal. She is not just any arch-paladin, but the one who rose through subjugating 20 demons single-handedly. She's the youngest arch-paladin in the Empire, but her personality is straight dog shit. Though she's really strong, and her skills are the real deal, he still finds it frustrating. Regardless, he's no match for her. Helia says that it can't be helped, and that he needs to take out the holy relic the Archbishop gave them. He asks if she means Damien's twin mirrors, and to reconsider it as it hasn't been 10 years since the other mirror broke. We learn that they are a pair of holy relics where each mirror can reflect scenes of the future and the past. The one that saw the future shattered after projecting the image of a horrendously powerful being, leaving only the one that sees the past. Helia yells asking who said anything about breaking it. This was given to them specifically to use when a search hits a dead end, asking if he would rather report to the Archbishop himself that he has no idea how his nephew died. She sighs telling him to stop worrying about it, because unless it reflects something like an archdemon there's no way it will break. He hands it to her, and she kneels down on the ground as it begins to shine a bright light. They see Kadim drinking the blood, and literally everything that happened to the paladin and all the prisoners. Ethan asks what the hell this is. For some reason the after-image of Kadim glares upwards, and the mirror shatters. They're both surprised by this, and Ethan says that this is impossible for a mirror that wouldn't break unless it captured an archdemon to shatter. This means that it reflected a being equivalent to one. He asks what kind of monstrosity that is, and says they need to return to the holy city and report it immediately. She asks why they would go back now that the culprit has been revealed they must continue their search. She draws her blade, and swings it forward saying that it's nothing more than a demon wearing human skin, and she'll execute him with her own hands. Back to Kadim and Duncan. Duncan is dipping his own water skin into the river. He says that for them to live their lives unable to trust or love anyone, eventually becoming madmen, he is talking about the children who are losing their minds, not Kadim, which is ironic, but says maybe because of his own son back home. He shakes his head saying that if he wants to make it back to see his family he needs to pull himself together. He can't keep acting like this if he's going to stay on the barbarian's good side. He makes it back to the camp telling him that he's sorry for having made him wait, and he'll get dinner ready quickly. He wonders why he's laying down already, and is surprised to see him shivering. He asks what's wrong, asking how someone who could tear apart demons so easily could be in pain like this. He looks at the wound on his chest, asking why it is acting up all of a sudden. Kadim says he should have realized sooner that the consecrated weapon must have had a blessing that deals fatal damage to demons. Normally it wouldn't affect a human, but he's a berserker who gains power through demon blood. While the demon blood is in his system, he has no choice but to be affected by it. Duncan says that he knew it, they shouldn't have moved today, and they should have rested in the village. Kadim says this isn't the kind of wound that heals with more rest. More importantly, he wants to know what the phase of the moon was yesterday. Duncan says that it was a waning crescent moon if his memory is correct. Kadim says that this is good, and thank God he didn't miss the timing, because if it's tonight then he knows what it means. Off in the woods they hear multiple wolves howling. Duncan gets scared as they look into the woods, seeing nothing but eyes peering back at them. A wolf slowly steps up. Duncan says they are called blade wolves. Kadim sighs, and grabs both of his weapons, the axe, and the sword, telling him to stay back. Duncan asks what he's going to do with his body like that. Kadim says this damn world just won't leave him alone. He calls out to all of the dogs, saying they should have picked a better time for their visit. The wolves begin snarling, and Kadim begins panting. They slowly walk forward before the first one takes the charge. Kadim throws his axe forward, hitting its side, causing it to fly backwards. He says that he was actually aiming between the eyes, and his vision is shaking so much he can't aim properly. The rest get very aggressive, and start to charge in, and he raises his sword, and thrusts through the side of one of their skulls. He follows through, killing another one to his side. Due to him being sluggish, it allows one of the wolves to bite his arm. He rears back his fist, and comes in hitting it in the head while another leaps at him from behind. He realizes it, turning, and hits it with the back fist, but then he gets bit on his leg. Realizing he is taking too many injuries, he stabs down, killing it. The rest begin to surround him, realizing that this might be winnable. They start growling, and he says that they are definitely experienced. They are reorganizing their ranks the moment they saw the first few get taken down, and on top of that there are too many of them. If his body were in top shape it'd be no problem, but he doesn't know how much longer he can hold back like this. He then hears Duncan screaming, and turns, seeing him trying to scare them off with fire. He says in his current state drinking this is no different from swallowing poison, but it's not like he has a choice. The wolves begin to smell the scent of the demon blood as he chugs that shit. He drops the water skin to the floor, and begins to exude demonic energy. It's so much pressure that the wolves start to get scared. When he opens his eyes he grabs his blade, and runs straight towards Duncan, cleaving the three wolves, saving him. Duncan is surprised that he's moving so quickly all of a sudden, but Kadim makes his way over to his axe, and picks it up before he continues his onslaught, killing even more wolves in an instant. He says the buff changes depending on what blood he consumes, and this time based on how fast he is, he has an idea what it is. As two wolves leap at him he starts to bob side to side, saying that it's actually the agility enhancement, and that's why he's so quick. That demon was a pain in the ass with how quick it was, and he thought this would probably be the effect. The other wolves begin running away, and Duncan tells him that they're actually leaving, but Kadim says that's not the case. He sees a giant white paw, and hears the sound of heavy footsteps, and a much deeper growl than before as the alpha wolf appears. Duncan tells him that one looks weird as he's twice as big as the others. Kadim says this is the pack leader, and this is bad since his buff is already wearing off. He's surprised by how fast it is as he dodges backwards. It shatters the floor where he was standing. He says this power is crazy, and it must be trying to crush him with weight. Then he starts to feel sudden pains in his chest, causing him to lose grip of his weapons as they fall out of his hands. He drops to the floor. Duncan yells asking if he's okay, and tells him to snap out of it because the wolf is right there. Kadim grabs onto his chest in severe pain as the pack leader gets closer. He says that the condition should have been met by now, asking if it's not time. Duncan asks why he's looking at the moon, because the enemies are in front of them, not in the sky. Kadim is surprised, saying that it's finally here. We see his eyes turn golden. He says at midnight on a night when the moon is completely hidden in its face, as he slaps his sword into the ground. He starts to call out for Athala, the undefeated master of all weapons, telling Athala to place their blade into his hands, and bless him who thirsts for battle. Let him quench his parched throat with the blood of his enemies, and now that the eye watching over the earth is closed he will discard Athala's name onto this blade. It begins to shine a golden color. Even the wolf is surprised. Duncan asks what the hell is going on as a golden aura starts to spread out from Kadim. Athala asks what name he shall grant this blade. He says it's been a while, and that resonance of will he felt during his first playthrough is comforting. The name he shall grant this blade is none other than Mosquito. As his eyes are completely golden now, he looks down at the sword as a red sigil starts to appear on the blade itself, imprinting it. It also mentions a unique trait of the one who discards names. The pack leader then leaps at Kadim, and Duncan screams, telling him to watch out before he pulls the blade out of the floor and slices across its throat. The wolf lands ready to start round 2. A status window appears, saying the special effect activates, as on the blade we see a red mist starting to emanate from it. It's called Life Steal, and a small amount of his health has been recovered. His wounds have also been partially healed as the giant scar across his chest starts to look like it's fading away. He says he can finally breathe again. The boss stares at him, growling while bleeding from its neck, and he says it's not enough, and they should go again. We don't get to see the rest of the fight, just him stabbing his sword to the top of its skull all the way down through the bottom. Of course, Life Steal activates once more, and begins channeling up to him until the point where the scar has been completely healed. He says that he didn't actually think that would happen, but it turns out these guys showing up was a pretty big blessing, as he's also killed the rest of the wolves. They must have jumped him when he was fighting their leader. He stares at the sword, saying he can't read ancient characters, but it probably translates to mosquito if he had to guess. The Life Steal is a special effect that recovers his health every time he damages an enemy. However, the weapon's grade is low, so the efficiency is ass. To fully recover from the state he was in, he'd have to slaughter dozens of monsters, and even then it would be useless if he encountered an enemy with no blood. He sighs, saying that this is enough for now. Being able to imbue a special effect without using any materials is a big advantage. Moreover, it's not a one-time thing. The conditions are met. He can obtain weapons with new special effects. Wanting too much from the start only leads to trouble, and that was a lesson he learned previously. Duncan peers around a tree, asking if it's finally over. He slowly walks forward, looking at the pack leader, saying that he's glad it's dead, and the rest seem to be dead too. He knows Kadim was clearly a wreck a moment ago, and it would have been strange if he collapsed, but he seems completely okay. He says it's not just the wounds from the bites, but even the wound from the paladin is gone, asking how. Kadim wonders why Duncan didn't run. Duncan is confused, and Kadim says when they face the wolf pack, if he had abandoned him while he was injured, and fled, he never would have been able to catch up to him. Duncan thinks about it, and starts to realize that he was completely right, wondering why he didn't. Kadim laughs it off, saying that even if he had, the wolves would have hunted him down, and turned him into a snack. But it seems like he hasn't given up on the idea of running away yet. Duncan says that's not it, but wonders himself why he didn't think of running. He might have been so worried about Kadim's injury that he didn't think of anything else. Kadim tells him to keep watch as he's exhausted, and needs to sleep. Duncan says yes sir. Kadim reminds him that if he's thinking of running while he sleeps, he'd better run to the ends of the earth so he never finds him, and if he does he'll pull his intestines out through his back, and turn them into a rope. Duncan wonders if he's joking or not, but says that he probably means it, and sits by the campfire crying while Kadim rests. The next day, as they're out and about again, Kadim asks how long it will take. Duncan tells him that it'll take about 10 more days of walking to reach the territory. The Empire occupies a large portion of the south, so they have to walk farther than the central region for the border to appear. Kadim asks if they can cross without issues, as he'd prefer not to run into any more paladins. Duncan says that shouldn't be a problem, as that's why he intentionally took them through a route where the patrol is light. They might run into bandits instead of paladins though. For someone like him, bandits are hardly a problem. And honestly, on a human level, nothing will be an obstacle for this man. He tells him that there was a small castle called Morden along the way, and they should restock their food there. The Alliance territory is smaller than the Empire's, but trade is booming, so the roads are well maintained. If they follow the shortcut, the main road called the Golden Road will appear soon. From there they can go straight to Vestana without a hitch. Kadim says that it certainly stretches all the way to the coastal city on the eastern end, which is his destination. It won't be an easy journey, but it's much better than it was in the past. 300 years ago, the eastern part of the continent was a battlefield where numerous small kingdoms, duchies, and city-states fought for power. People were naturally exclusive, and no one welcomed outsiders, especially not a giant barbarian whose potential for havoc was unknown. Melissa looked at him like he was a bug the first time she saw him too. It's no wonder, to a girl mage who had lived her whole life as a scholar, a barbarian suddenly suggesting they travel together must have been bizarre. She kept making notes about him in her book, how he might be half ogre, that he might be trying to traffic her, and a bunch of other things too, but he thought it was cute, and wholesome. And he smiles thinking about the memory. Duncan says that these days the Free City Alliance has become a place where people don't mind someone like him as much. He doesn't need to worry about it. He hears people yelling up ahead, and when he looks forward he sees two groups arguing. Kadim asks what it looks like to him. Duncan says judging by their clothes they look like bandits, and the people scolding them seem to be a different group. He's not exactly sure what's going on. He says that nothing good comes from getting involved, and they should take a detour. As they do, one of the dudes notices them, pointing them out. Kadim says this is a pain as they all run over. He pulls out both of his weapons ready for a fight. As they continue running in, he looks up ready as one of the men's eyes start to glow golden. He pulls his hands out, and he and his homie tell them all to see. He told them all that Aegon's raging horn would come, and they should try fighting with him now as he is right here in the flesh. As they see the other dudes running away they start laughing at them. Kadim asks what the hell just happened. But they ignore him. Kadim tells them he'll only ask once more, wanting to know what just happened. They apologize, thanking him for coming to help them, and once more call him Aegon's raging horn. Kadim sighs saying that he's not whatever that is, and he has no intention of helping them. But he has a long way to go, so get lost. They're confused asking if he's really not Aegon's raging horn. They look at each other blankly. They then draw their blades asking who the hell he is to suddenly pop out, and confuse them, and if he's a nobody then he should die. Duncan wonders if their heads are empty. If you've watched till the end comment, cookie, to let me know. Thanks to my Patreon members. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.